Hey, for our next presenter, we're going to do AI in your department, which really is talking about how do I break this down at a level that is not just maybe myself in general, but if I'm working inside of, let's say, a marketing or a sales or a product department, how can I use AI really specifically? And we have our marketing guru, Rob McFarland, here to give us some insight into that. Here you go, Rob.
Thanks, Grant. So I like to joke that marketing made first contact with an intelligent life form. And what I mean by that is AI created the most value in marketing right out the gate. And when I first sat down and started playing with ChatGPT, I knew that my job had changed forever. And that's proven to be true. It really has changed this whole scope of the job. And it's enabled one person to be able to do lots of different roles that had formerly been filled by a team of specialists. And the pressure really hit marketing, like I said, probably the first of the various departments of a business. And the pressure was to write faster, design more, analyze everything, and support more channels with fewer resources. That's been a trend in marketing for many years, and AI has really accelerated that. Role consolidation has been a thing, for over a decade. So initially, one of the first things that people used it for is just to help write emails, write web copy, etc. But it's advanced well beyond that now and has become an operating layer for how marketing work gets planned, created, reviewed, and shipped. So the first obvious value that it provided was image generation. That value was obvious. Marketing departments spend a lot of time, energy, and resources creating images which might not get a ton of business value. And historically, like I said, you'd need a graphic designer who has that specialty skills to get in there and do that work, all of which was very time consuming and challenging from a technical and a creative standpoint. Whereas formerly you'd be searching through stock images and or having to design things from whole cloth, you can now create custom imagery really easily. And as many of you know, when this first thing got started, the images, were pretty neat early on, but were pretty problematic. We'd throw extra hands in there. Text was a disaster. And so people kind of wrote it off as slop, and but that has changed. The quality has improved exponentially. Every time a model gets released, the improvements are really, really impressive. What's changed with tools like Adobe Firefly and Nano Banana is you're able to get consistency across multiple posts. Earlier this year, Grant taught a class at Eastern Washington University about C#. And it really challenged him because AI has made development entirely different. And so he wanted to chronicle his first class of teaching C# in an AI era. And so he wrote a series of blog posts. And it was important that all of those posts looked like they were part of the same thing. And formerly, getting that same characters, same graphic styles, all of that was very challenging, but it's become much easier. And I'll just kind of buzz through this workflow in Adobe Firefly. So the first thing you do is select which model you want. In this case, it's Nano Banana. You select your aspect ratio of what you want. You can add context, images of what you want it to look like. And then, of course, you enter your detailed prompt of what you want the content to be and what you want it to look like. And right out the gates, it'll give you something that's pretty darn good. You can see here there's coherent writing. The characters are all have the appropriate number of digits. But what we just saw is I'm able to prompt it and say, I want Grant closer to the whiteboard, and it just does that. So that's pretty neat. But actually, the text generation solved a harder problem for us. And the example that I'll give you for that is writing case studies. Every time we wrap up a project here, we try to write a case study to help capture the work that we did so that we can share that with our clients and for proposals and just to have a record of the work that we've done. And that really exposed a bottleneck, which unfortunately was me. And the reason for that is, of course, the writing is challenging enough. But now add to that not speaking the language. So I don't have a educational background in computer science. So in starting to work here, I had a real steep learning curve of how to speak the language. And ChatGPT really helped me to cut through all of that jargon, all of these technical terms, so that I could understand it on my time and not have to constantly badger developers for further insights of what they're talking about, all of that. So just on that level, it created a ton of value. But also, it helped speed up the process considerably. What was formerly a lot of me interviewing developers, asking clarifying questions, drafting, revisions, all of it became much easier with ChatGPT and AI tools. However, those tools still made it largely a manual process. I was still copy-pasting from questionnaires. I was still just, kind of having to go through this process, one step after another. I'd gather the context, I'd ask follow-up questions, I'd structure the story, I'd generate all the assets, and then I'd publish the thing. What I recognized in having done that a whole bunch of times is this was a repeatable process. I did the same things virtually every time. And what that told me is this was an opportunity to create an agent-driven workflow. And so for the next step of this thing, the goal was to capture all the expertise that the developers have, not just ultimately the output. So we built what we call the case study interviewer agent. We built it in Copilot Studio, which Dan talked a little bit about earlier, and it's delivered through Teams. The agent turns developer interviews into case study drafts. Essentially what happens is the agent's able to capture all the project context, the client challenges, the technical approach that we took to solving their challenges, the business outcome, and then it continues to ask questions of the developer until it's satisfied that it has all of the pertinent details to be able to generate the case study. From there, it then generates the case study. It also creates one-sheet copy, social media posts, image prompts, and other content. So this is the workflow, basically, from the project closing to publishing it in the various channels. So the process gets started when a project closes in IntelliTect's proprietary professional service automation platform called Storming the Castle. When that project moves to close status, the project manager gets a notification through Teams that they need to assign the case study to the lead developer. The developer then gets a message in Teams, which begins the interview. The agent then asks a series of questions to extract those details. Like I said, it's smart. It can ask, those clarifying questions and really get at the details and ensure that, we capture all of the work and value that we provided. The agent then creates those draft assets. It writes to a Word template. The agent knows exactly how we like to write, how we like to format things. And then out of that, there's a human-in-the-loop editorial process. So obviously, I review all of the contents that have been generated. I go back and forth in an editorial process with the developer. Once we decide ultimately that it's good to go, we then call on another agent, which Dan talked about earlier, to create all of the content and ultimately publish and distribute it. How am I doing on time? Okay. So we're looking at a whole ecosystem of agents from that will basically carry out all the work of the marketing department. You can see on this slide in the left column all of the ones that we're looking at building, and in the right column are the platforms and tools that we connect with those agents. And we also created something called our marketing manifest agent, which basically is the single source of truth for all of our agents in our ecosystem. And it's important because agents need that shared context so that they're working from the same strategic foundation. The agent is built based on the principles of Karapathy's LLM wiki, which is basically a way of structuring all of the information so that the agents can easily read it and understand it. You can see the index for the sections of the manifest, and all of those sections are, like I said, written in such a way that the agents know exactly what to do.
Thanks all, Rob. Great stuff. And I just wanted to ask a couple of questions at the end. It seems like you've done a great job of kind of automating a lot of these different pieces. Are you concerned about your job?
Great question. So initially, I definitely was concerned. Like I said, I knew immediately my job had changed, and I think, all of us, when we experience that change, can get a little bit of an uneasy feeling. But anecdotally, what's happened here at IntelliTect is all of this AI work that we've done has actually created new opportunities. And so we're actually expanding and creating new jobs for people to come in and help with our marketing efforts for IntelliTect and the various products that we're marketing.
So one final question. We heard the term kind of AI slop, and you talked about, hey, this process and AI is generating some stuff, but how do we help it not just to be that AI slop that has lots of EM dashes and a lot of emojis and extra words that just seem like they're just kind of filling space?
Sure.
What are some tips that we can use to make this really sound good, and not only into the LLM, but maybe some processes afterwards?
Sure. So the marketing manifest, I think, is really essential to help you get the output that you'd like, to give it some more parameters, to let it know that, for example, you don't want it to write with M dashes. And that helps control the output a little bit, but it's also really important that a human remains in the loop. There's always got to be a person that's evaluating, making sure that everything is representing the business how you want it to. And then lastly, as I like to say, the thing that as a marketing person that you're getting paid for, especially now where it's less about clicking buttons and using tools, is taste. And so ultimately it's up to you to make that sort of taste decision about whether this constitutes something that people would think is slop or if it's something that they would recognize as valuable.
Fantastic. Thanks, Rob. Appreciate it.